Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Fleetwood, and today we have a very special guest, Andrew Moffatt from Qrious Insights. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey Dan, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, you've been in the industry a while, as have I. I'd be surprised if people don't know you, but for those who might not know, can you give a little bit of background around your expertise, what you're doing now, and then we can dive into the conversation?
Most of my career spent it at what's now Dynata, formerly SSI, on that side of the business. Started before online started, so trained back in the phone days when sampling seemed to matter, maybe more than it does today. And then basically evolved, spent some time in Europe, getting things moving in different countries, which was quite fun. And ended up running our global business with a lot of the big agencies in the world. Managed our global business with Nielsen, had a team all over the world, building panels to move work online from offline, and eventually building measurement panels in different parts of the world. So things like Nielsen net ratings and HomeScan, which kind of feeds the Circana and Nielsen business. Building those kinds of panels all around the world is what we ended up doing in an outsourced capacity, and is a lot of what we do today. Today, I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Qrious Insight, where we focus really on behavioral, passive behavioral data and insights, and being able to provide research agencies and brands the ability to blend behavioral into what they're doing today.
So how'd you start Qrious Insights? What led into that whole thing of wanting to start it? And
so I left SSI actually a year before it became Dynata, and initially went into the data quality space, tackling fraud and digital fingerprinting and that whole kind of front end of like trying to clean the supply chain, basically.
Yeah.
Put a lot of effort into B2B and trying to figure out how to make that work better. And in the end, I left the business. But when I did, figured that it still wasn't like catching everything, right? You still need a researcher looking at data. You still need people to make sure that the data that you're collecting from a survey source is still good. I think those problems are kind of crazy today, but they've been around for a while. And we saw the opportunity from our work engaging with Nielsen to see passive data and the power that it offers, right? So if you look at the ad in the media space, you've got billions of dollars in decisions being made on what is a relatively small panel data set. Like a media panel is 50,000 people that are basically telling you what they're watching,
right?
Max. But that's a small number of people to make a lot of decisions from. And so the reason that's so valuable is because you're passively observing people. You're not having to engage with them to understand them. And we wanted to take that concept to the consumer market more broadly and out of the hands of just the folks that can afford to build measurement panels into the mass market in a way. As we've done that, it's actually proven itself to solve a lot of today's issues. And I fundamentally believe that it's the behavioral captures of behaviors of people is how data collection will be in the future as a primary method of data collection away from surveys, because it solves a lot of the existing problems. So you have the ability to detect real people.
Yeah, that's a big one.
we see what apps you're using, what websites you're going to, where you're going in person, right? So at a high level, like we can tell if you're real or not, right? But you can also look at device characteristics and things like, is this battery plugged in at 100% all the time? Are they where are they accessing it from? Like what different like metrics on the device that tell you what's real or not? And the really the only reason we have a better view of it is because we see people longer. We see people all the time. And then the next main thing that we've done is profiled people based on their actual behaviors. So instead of going through these massive profilers or in the survey world, routers,
Yep.
serve a lot of this functionality today, where before you go to the survey, they ask you all about you. We capture 25,000 pieces of information on someone every month, right? And we turn that into your hobbies and interests, the social media places you go to, the fast food places that you consume at, the shops that you go to buy your groceries, or whatever you want to know about someone. It comes through in their mobile behavior, basically.
Right.
And so we've now got dynamically updating profile information all the time on hundreds of variables that can give depth to any survey answer that you append to that person, or just simply looking at their behaviors. And these things have unlocked kind of like value that kind of hasn't existed in our space before, and have unlocked the ability to, I think, enhance research while engaging with people less, because effectively they just have to turn a permission on their phone, and that's how.
Right. I think there's many different avenues to behavioral research, right? In terms of from collection to the information you collect and so forth. How are you guys collecting that now? Is it mainly via different apps that people put on their phone? Is it across websites? What does that look like practically? If like I'm signing up for your panel, what am I signing up for?
So we have two main ways. One is obviously through our own panels. In those, you have you basically come in. You're getting paid for your data every day that you share data. That's the model. So instead of coming in to take a survey and then you're getting paid whenever you're profiled and you get to a paid complete, you're getting paid every day to share data, and that's the model. So it's very explicit. It's very open.
Yeah.
And we can engage with everyone in surveys as needed, and they will get paid appropriately for those surveys. But the main model is just to share your data. We now also integrate our tech into other people's apps. So if you have a loyalty program, if you have a game, if you have other ways of paying people for their data, you can basically integrate our tech into those apps. And sometimes we get access to people to take surveys, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But we can create data assets for people. We can create understanding of audiences outside their apps for them, and where they're going, what they're doing. So if you're a gaming app and you want to know every other game they're playing outside of yours and how much time they're spending in there, helping your development, we can see that. Or really create an understanding of people that isn't possible with surveys. That's really only possible from having a persistent behavioral of what they're doing.
Right. It seems like the two can be a nice complement to each other, because I mean, definitely you have like the surveys and then behavioral, and I'm sure there's a number of projects where they both match up. I think one thing that's nice about behavioral research is, oftentimes what people say they're going to do, they don't actually do, right? And there's a mismatch there. So you can probably crack that nut pretty quick, right? Of like, hey, did you do what you said you're going to do? And what's your actual behavior? So I think that's where it comes into, really comes into fruition, right?
Agreed. We actually have some research on that topic that people can reach out and get if they want. But the high level is like, when we ask people, like, did you engage with a brand on your app like last week? About a third of people don't get that right. If you ask,
that's pretty high, actually.
It's higher for certain brands. It's higher for certain categories. If you ask them about banking, it's probably lower, maybe because they don't want to tell you. And so that's interesting. But if you get down to like details, so like, hey, how many hours did you spend on your phone last week? About 80% get that wrong. If you give them like a 4-hour range, basically 4 hours. And then if you ask people, say, how many products did you review online last week? About like, 4% will get that right. So,
yeah, that's crazy. I know anytime, like, this is a simple example, I get the weekly screen time update from Apple, and I'm always like, I spent that much time on my phone. Like, it's way more than I would guess that I
actually turned it off because I don't want to know that.
Yeah, maybe I should turn it off. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's always a nice surprise, but
yeah.
So in terms of, we were talking before you came on, and you said, hey, behavioral research isn't as big as it should be. There's some companies doing it. Why do you think it should be bigger, and what are some of the ways that you're working to, I guess, amplify the message of behavioral research?
Yeah, I think the reason it's big in the big companies and in the big decisions, but it's not necessarily funneled all the way down to more
Right.
mainstream use of behavioral is how I think of it. And I think the reason for that is that it's really expensive,
Okay.
basically. And
Yeah.
and there's another part to build them in the beginning, and then the other part of it is that the data itself is really complex, like
Mhm.
super
Yeah.
hard. It's taken us a long time to create structure from the behavioral data.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And a lot of the data outputs that we're now creating in hours and days often take the bigger companies even today like multiple months to pull together
Mhm.
because of the complexity of the data. So in my original kind of view of the company, I was giving all this data to research companies and saying, hey, go compete with Nielsen and go compete with others with the same type of data. But the
Right.
more I try to give data to people, it doesn't look like survey data. You're basically, Dan is a collection of 20,000 things Dan did last month, right?
Hmm.
You're
Yeah.
trying to find what the most insightful part out of that is for a particular use case,
Yeah.
right? And
That's good.
so
That's a good point.
it's a little bit different. So making sense of the data has been the biggest thing that we've had to try to figure out and do. And now uh, we're giving all of that learning to people so that they can action off of data without having to build a lot of infrastructure and people and understanding on their side. We're giving them profiling so that they
Yeah.
can understand their users without having to ask questions and try to provide value so that we can bridge the economic gap, basically.
Hmm.
And in the end, we believe in creating a world where you don't need routers because you can hyper target people
Right.
based on behaviors. So I'm talking to Dan because you watched Squid Game on Netflix last night, and that's who I want to talk to.
Right.
And, and then I can append learnings about Dan and say, hey, you were on Facebook for 22 hours last month and 52 times, and you were on TikTok for 73 million hours and
That's
million
pretty
times.
close, actually. No.
um, or whatever your metrics actually are. And that's your device level behavior. And so being able to shorten that survey by bringing in behavioral data, try to shorten the survey by having real people be
Yeah.
hyper targeted and basically reserving the survey to be a set of questions that really get to the heart of their attitudes, perceptions, and things that we really want to know about them, and get away from really long questionnaires that are a battery of
Yeah.
questions to understand behaviors or to make sure that you have the real person that's taking your survey and having 20 red herring questions in there to make sure they're real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with you there. I think surveys in general are too long. I would 100% agree. And I think it's interesting because you can really help out the respondent experience, right? Just by
Yeah,
particular targeting. And like to your point, like someone watched Squid Game. Well, I want to talk to people that watch Squid Game. How can I target them? For a fact that they watched it. It's not people,
right,
saying that they did or thinking that they might. It's actually
right.
consumers of that particular episode. In terms of behavioral research, where do you see it going? Obviously, AI is a buzzword here, but it's very practical, right? Do you guys integrate AI, or how do you see AI and behavioral research as a, I guess, symbiotic relationship moving forward?
Yeah, I think the AI can bring the behavioral stuff to life in a way that maybe wasn't even possible before faster.
Yeah. Right.
And I think at a high level, behavioral is coming up more and more. People are
Hmm.
wanting it, demanding it. We're seeing some of the world's largest brands building behavioral data, which is quite interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so I see behavioral becoming more pervasive as the future goes on. And you're moving from a world of surveys where you're collecting data from different people at a point in time to the same people all the time, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that's grounded in real deterministic actions. And so if you think of AI, there's lots of different applications. Today, it's if you hear people talk about synthetic audiences or digital twins, they can be
Yeah.
created from our kind of data. We're building AI tools just to be able to target based on behavioral variables within our data set in a natural language type of way. But as time goes on, I think it allows for people to access insights directly through AI into a data asset, maybe than a series of surveys and things like that. That's always collecting data, or even to feed agents that. If you take all of our ad category data in QSR across every brand, see which platforms are performing better, see what messaging is performing better that people are responding to, and feeding that into agents, like it can go beyond research into other worlds, and behavioral is used in all of the major platforms to drive the outcomes they want today, right? So all the algorithms are all behavioral based, right? So it's kind of
that's an interesting point. One thing I was going to ask you about is around synthetic data. It seems like all the behavioral research and information you're conducting, it seems like synthetic data or digital twins would be a good way to, kind of utilize it and build it out. Is that something you guys are actively thinking about, or is it more of like, is it a year down the road, 2 years down the road? Is it now? Where are you guys at that?
Yeah, I'll say we're actively fueling different platforms that are both active and doing some R&D in this space. And the reason why we believe we've got the better fuel is because of the nature of the data that we're collecting, that it's a always on data collection method. There's 20 to 25,000 outcomes or information pieces on a person every month that are feeding into dynamic profiling. That's all grounded on deterministic data, no models, no nothing, right? So, so in that sense, we feel the data we have and can collect for someone can fuel a world of synthetic that I think is much more real and has a continuous ability to keep up with the AI and the models and things like that, because you're always collecting data, right?
I think that's a big advantage you have, is you're always collecting data, right? So it's always on, and you're collecting it, I think, so it won't get stagnant, so to speak, and you always have that good funnel of new information coming in. So that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, we can look at research in the past. So you can say, like, hey, what happened in the past 12 months in this category? We get that a lot. And then it's like, well, then let me track that on a continuous basis and see if things move around in different ways. So.
Right. One thing I'm interested in, you mentioned earlier that, the structure of the data when you're collecting all this is difficult. Like you guys have figured out how to, I don't know, would you say merchandise it, or how to, kind of format it, I'll say, in terms of getting it into the hands of the client. Are there any other big challenges that you face, or things you have to overcome with behavioral research that you guys have been able to solve?
We're in the middle of solving it right now. It's just the scale issue, right?
Scale, yeah.
So we have a lot of people we're tracking today, 150,000 people daily. We're scaling that out in the US. And now we're looking to see how we can do that in other markets across the world and scale it in that way as well. So that's the challenge we're solving for right now. That's what we're doing over the next kind of 12 months.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, right? 150,000 people, and you said, was it 20,000 different data points potentially?
Every month on a person,
Andrew, that's a lot of data. I don't have to tell you that. That's amazing. Wow.
That's not everyone, right? That's daily. So you get probably 250 in a month that are kind of traversing through the apps and things like that. So
but still, that's a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of what's an ideal project, like if I'm a researcher and I say, hey, I'm thinking about this, what would that be in terms of, if I come to you and say I want to run this project, what's an ideal project look like?
Yeah, good question. So we have different types of clients because we have the ability to solve problems for a lot of different types of people. So what we tend to see is, like, if you're a brand that sells digitally online, we see in-app, Amazon, Walmart, shopping, Target, things like that. So we see a lot, as well as like web purchases and things. So we see a lot of like consumer journey, path to purchase work, and layering that in with profiling and different things that we can understand from people. Same with advertisers. So big advertisers who have audiences that want to look at the role of their audience at a brand or a category level to help with ad sales or ad claims and things like that.
Mhm.
They're more visual outputs of the data. And then the ones that we kind of talked about where you have the static kind of understanding of people, that's often either data feeds. So here's everyone that's engaged with someone in banking in the past month, and every app and website they went to or in-person visit and things like
Yeah.
that, as well as other profile variables are simply just appending to your survey data, right? So
Yeah.
here's Dan's social media behavior in the past 30
Mhm.
days and his hobbies and interests and anything else you want to know about Dan based on Dan's behaviors and not anything that Dan told us.
Right. I'm a pretty boring person, Andrew, so I don't know there's a lot you wanna know about me, so.
You'd be surprised, Dan. You'd be surprised.
No, I know. I'm just joking.
You're a shopper.
Uh,
You buy things, you go
yeah,
for
that's true.
it. You travel.
Uh, yeah, that's a good point. No, I know. What advice would you give someone that's looking to improve their approach to behavioral research, or I guess just consumer panel management in general? Any
Yeah.
advice that you've learned over the years that you would give people?
In consumer panels, I think the biggest thing that I think I see is there's a push towards real, right? And
Mhm.
and understanding who's real and not, or verifying people in some way. And I think because AI has gotten smarter than the tools that were created to catch the bots, that push has never been kind of to be faster than ever
Right,
before. And
right.
so in our world, we kind of look at we can get you to real while helping you profile and understand your person at the same time. So we're hoping that, people want to move in that direction. Anyone who does, happy to help them get going, help them understand what it takes. And in the end, like you mentioned before, we see this at a high level benefiting the consumer. The more people that are creating data and paying consumers rather than paying third parties to append data in some way through PII matches and stuff like that, that's
Yeah,
really what we're offering people. And for consumers to get more directly in all kinds, not just panels, rather than going to third parties. And I think that's obviously a better use of our way to engage with people in time. You create a better relationship with the consumer, and I think the relationship right now with survey takers is quite
yeah,
bad because the experience is quite difficult. If you're a real person taking surveys, I don't know what you look like really,
yeah.
because
That's a good point.
there's
Yeah,
100 surveys a day. You can't really be doing anything else.
right, right. In terms of the resources out there, what's impacted you? Is there any like book, podcasts, can be around behavioral insights or just research in general that you would point people to?
Yeah, I tend to travel around, go to conferences
Yeah,
now more than ever. I listen to all the industry podcasts. Obviously, Happy Market Research. Glad that you guys
yeah,
um, have this podcast and get it going. I listen to SEMA's podcast, the
yep,
Data Gurus one, EMI podcast, any Green Book podcasts,
yep,
webinars. It's usually where I pick up a lot of my content these days.
yep. Makes sense. Yeah,
And really my drive towards behavioral came from just direct exposure to seeing what the leader in research does, which is Nielsen, and the power of that data, and how they got started. Like I used to spend a lot of time in their buildings, so
yeah,
would see like where this all started, and this behavioral is a huge chunk of what drives their success and what their growth is, right? And
yeah, yep,
kind of yeah, so that's and now I think it solves all today's problems, because I have the exposure to the survey business, and we can bridge that gap between, all right, this is how you do it and make it useful for everyone, right? And
right, right.
yeah, who knows where the next few years will go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody knows, right? It's hard to predict the future. So,
It is. I
yeah,
know it's going to change a lot in the next few years because of AI and
yeah, exactly, exactly.
happening in the survey market today, right? So
Yeah, yeah. Well, Andrew, this has been a lot of fun. For listeners that would like to connect or learn more about your work at Qrious or just in general, where's the best place for them to go? Is it LinkedIn? Is it the website?
Probably the LinkedIn to catch me, website if you want to learn more about us. So QriousInsight.com and
Cool.
feel free to reach out on LinkedIn and DM me and see where we can see if we can help in any way.
Awesome. Well, hey, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today and really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.